Welcome back to the ClassyJS Devlogs. This is ClassyJS Devlog number 007. If you're new to ClassyJS or you'd like to follow along with the progress we're making, check out the previous devlogs linked in the description below. If you'd like to download ClassyJS, the link is also in the description, or you can go to classyjs.com. In our most recent devlogs, we've explored controlling access and how powerful it is. We've accomplished a lot, and we've got one more amazing option available to us. I'll break this into two devlogs. To understand how this next piece fits into the puzzle, it can be helpful to quickly review the control we've been able to achieve so far. With public, we give access externally and internally, which is what we're used to with vanilla JavaScript. Everything can access everything, really offering no control over access at all. Like leaving your Lamborghini parked on the main strip with the doors open and the keys in the ignition. With protected, we've locked some of the access down to internal only, which offers a lot more security. This is like having your Lambo parked in your garage and the keys on the counter for your whole family to have access to. Finally, with private, we've totally locked it down, allowing only the class itself to have access. This is like keeping your sweet ride in your secret spy base with a retinal scanner as the only access. You can get to it, but nobody else even knows it exists. This seems like everything, but what about if you want people to see your Italian dream machine, but you don't want them to have access inside? In other words, which of these would you use to allow only the ability to read the data, but not write the data? That is our topic today, getters. Before we begin, there's a little cleanup to do from devlog number 6. We'll need to open up dog.js and remove the line this._name equals Bob. There, now we're ready to begin. Let's take a look at the name property of our pet class. Normally with a pet, you'd want to know its name. You'd want to be able to identify its name externally. Right now we can't because we made its name property protected. It being protected is good because we don't want anything outside to be able to change it. But it's also bad because nobody outside can even know what our pet's name is. Let's fix that. To make a getter, we need to decide how much access we should grant to this getter. In most cases, it will be public so everyone can use it. So let's add pub. Next, we need to declare this as a getter. To do that, we add the keyword get to pub by adding .get. Now we need to name our getter. The best practice is to name this as you would name the public version of your already existing private or protected property. In this case, our protected property is _name. So to make a public version, we would want to call this name with no underscore to denote that it's public. Let's add .name. Here's where it starts getting really interesting. Getters are always methods that return a value. So let's add an empty method definition. And since this needs to return a value, and because it needs to be the value of the related protected property _name, we'll add return this._name. That's it. That's all there is to making a getter. Now let's use it. We'll open up our main code and add a line to console log out our dog's name. Here's where it gets really cool. We can simply add console.log this.firstdog.name. But where are the parentheses? I thought this was a method. It is, and it's not. Getters are like spies. They are methods that appear to be properties. With getters, you don't use the parentheses. You just treat it like a regular property. This makes them easier to use. You don't have to use that little bit of extra mental energy to think, what does this method do? You just know you're dealing with a property. Let's test the code to see if it worked. With a quick refresh, we see Hugo at the bottom of the logs. It worked just as we expected. It ran the hidden get method and returned the protected property, all while acting like a property itself. We've only tested reading. Let's test writing. To do this, let's try to change the name of our dog by adding this.firstdog.name equals Chris. And let's see what happens. A quick refresh and nothing. The dog's name wasn't changed. This is really powerful, and it can also be very dangerous. First, it's powerful because when someone using your class thinks they're just using a property, there's less thought required, which makes using your class simpler. Secondly, it's powerful because it's actually a method, and you can add code before you return a value. You could choose to perform many operations prior to returning the value. With our new name getter, we could do a check of what day of the week it is and return the name only on Mondays, or get even more complicated and return the name only on Mondays between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. and Tuesdays between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. and so on. You could use a counter that checks to see how many times you've tried to access the name, and if it exceeds 5, don't return the name anymore. This is obviously very powerful. The danger is that from outside, it looks like you're only doing one operation. It looks like you're only accessing a property, but in fact, you're doing a bunch of hidden calculations, and this can cause seriously hard to find slowdowns in your code. Let's say you have a game where 60 times a second you needed to get the X and Y position of your character, and you simply use character.x and character.y. This looks harmless enough, but if X and Y are actually getters that perform 100 lines of code, your code will bog down, and you won't know why. To add on to this, since all the characters in the game are likely inheriting this code, you'd unknowingly use these getters tens, if not hundreds or thousands of times every loop, or 60 times every second, causing massively laggy code. So what do we do? The recommendation is to do as few operations as possible in a getter. Try to keep it as clean and tight as possible. If you find you're doing even moderate levels of work in a getter, make it an actual method instead of a getter. So in our pet class, if our getter had lots of calculations in it, we'd want to make it obvious that more is going on behind the scenes by turning our getter into a method like pub.getNameFrom. Since our code is simple, let's keep leveraging the power of getters. Today we saw that we can create properties with read-only access, and we can add calculations to those properties. We also saw that getters communicate to users of your class that there are minimal to no calculations happening behind the scenes. And if more operations need to happen, then using methods communicates to users of your class there could be moderate to significant work going on behind the scenes. To further explore getters, try adding a getter for the underscore sound property. Thanks for joining us today for another ClassyJS devlog. As always, please subscribe, give a thumbs up, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.